Today's episode is sponsored by our good friends at MyPillow. MyPillow makes the very best pillows, slippers, sheets, and so much more. I know I can speak to this because I own a pair of their slippers and they're $35. And if you type in the code MISSION, you go to mypillow.com, type in the code MISSION, you can find the slippers there along with the sheets.
Yeah.
Those are super comfortable.
I mean,
too,
I wear
so.
my slippers every day, and I've changed all the sheets on my bed to my pillow sheets because for the price, they are the best.
Yeah, yes. The best. So mypillow.com, code MISSION, mypillow.com, code MISSION. And we'd love to hear from you. Email us at momsonamission53@gmail.com or check us out at momsonamission.net and follow us on your favorite platform.
In the Declaration of Geneva, one version of the Hippocratic Oath, it states, I will not permit considerations of age, disease, or disability, creed, ethnic origin, gender, nationality, political affiliation, race, sexual orientation, social standing, or any other factor to intervene between my duty and my patient, end quote. Our brave guest today, sadly, has been informed that he no longer has the ability to choose his oath. He was told by the American College of Surgeons that he, along with all surgeons, is systematically racist. He has been a physician for 45 years and has demonstrated such excellence in his surgical career that he serves as a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. He practices Bosshardt and Marzik Plastic Surgery Associates. Please welcome to Moms on a Mission, Dr. Richard Bosshardt. Welcome, Dr. Bosshardt.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here. And by the way, this is not a plug, but I do have a MyPillow at home. So
Oh, good.
Fill that in.
Is it the 2.0 or the regular? The 2.0 they say is cooler.
I have no clue. It's a nice pillow though.
Okay, we need to ask your wife.
Well, I sleep very well at night.
Okay, good.
Well, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a board certified plastic surgeon and board certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. I had been in practice in the town of Tavares in Central Florida in Lake County. Now going on, this will be my 33rd year of practice. My actual surgical career goes back farther than that because I was a general surgeon before I decided to specialize in plastic surgery. So I was at one point double board certified by the American Board of Surgery and the American Board of Plastic Surgery. And one of my goals when I achieved board certification was to obtain fellowship in the American College of Surgeons. This is the oldest and largest organization in the world, representing surgeons in surgery in all surgical specialties. Over 100 years old, founded in 1913. It is considered to be somewhat of an honor. I always considered it to be an honor to be a fellow, because there are fairly strict requirements for fellowship. You have to be recommended by 2 other fellows. You have to have been in practice for over a year or 2 with a good practice history. There's actually a formal induction ceremony with an oath being taken. And the idea is that, you know, if you are a member, a fellow of the American College of Surgeons, that you are attempting to practice at the highest levels of surgery, that you are dedicated to excellence in your surgical career. The goal of the ACS, it's easier to say it than to say American College of Surgeons every time. The original mission statement of the ACS was to heal all with skill and fidelity. Very, very brief and all-inclusive. That fidelity, you could use the word trust for, you know, with skill and trust. That has changed. I'm not even sure that I can recite the new, more wordy mission statement, but it's become a little bit more of a woke statement. But the idea is for the ACS to be there for surgeons, to encourage excellence, to initiate programs that help surgeons to develop themselves. They have an annual convention. They offer courses. They represent surgery, and they represent, of course, the patients that surgeons take care of. And having been a fellow all these years, I've always been very proud of that. I've always had the FACS after my MD, as most of us do who are fellows. Changed fairly dramatically in around 2018. I mean, would you like to hear my story now, or do you want to?
No, I'd say go ahead and tell me again, how long have you been a fellow with the ACS?
I became a fellow in 1991, so
Okay.
over 30 years now.
Yeah. So,
I would need to say I'm still a fellow. I'm still in good
okay.
standing, according to the leadership of the ACS, which when you hear what they've done to me is a little bit ironic.
Yeah.
But in 2018, I was looking at their bulletin. They put out a regular bulletin, like a newsletter, I suppose. And the bulletin included a lecture given at the annual convention of the ACS. It was a named lecture, kind of a prestigious thing to do. The invited lecturer was a pediatrician from Harvard, who was the director of diversity, inclusion, and community partnership is what they called it at Harvard. And her title of her lecture was Excellence, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I read the transcript of the entire lecture word for word. I read it through twice to be sure I didn't miss anything. And other than the title, the word excellence never appeared. The entire lecture was about diversity and inclusion. And this was my first exposure. I mean, I was completely clueless. I had never heard of critical race theory. I was clueless about DEI. I was just trying to practice medicine best I could, and don't have a lot of free time when you do that. And so I sent a letter in. I actually sent a comment that was published and it's available online. And that was a very long comment. And I expressed some concerns about trying to elevate things like diversity, inclusion over and above excellence in something like the practice of surgery. It seemed to me that that's kind of a skewed order of priorities. And I was concerned about that. I said, I'm all for diversity. I'm all for inclusion, but I think excellence has to be the prime motivating goal of all surgery. And I comment in, didn't get any real feedback on. And then a little bit of time went by, and at that point, I started to study, and I was learning things about things like critical race theory, all the programs that were coming out for diversity, trying to stimulate diversity in our culture and society. So that went into 2020. And what happened was, everyone remembers George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd. And there was this massive rush in this country to try to deal with supposed systemic racism in our culture. I mean, supposedly the US was a systemically racist country, that all of our institutions were basically racist, and terms like white privilege and whiteness and so forth came out. And all these organizations and corporations and institutions couldn't move fast enough to try to jump on this bandwagon of fighting against systemic racism. And it took the form of things like supporting Black Lives Matter, which has since been shown to be a horrifically Marxist and probably illegal organization, with misuse of funds and so forth. They began to add DEI initiatives in their companies and their organizations. Well, the ACS basically did the same thing. Now, this is mind you, a professional organization of surgeons, for surgeons, by surgeons. And they jumped in with the same degree of enthusiasm, and they actually put together a task force on racism. And this happened all within weeks of the George Floyd killing. And so this task force met and put together a long paper of recommendations as a result of their deliberations. And when I read that, I said, oh my God, what is happening to the ACS? Because by then I understood anti-racism and what it is. I understood CRT, critical race theory. And I said, this does not belong in the ACS. And the thing that really got to me was the characterization of the ACS as a systemically racist organization. And even a step above that was the characterization of surgeons as racists. We can't help it because we're all racist, especially white surgeons. And then the practice of surgery itself was called racist. And this was based on the claim that minorities, specifically Blacks, Hispanics and others as well are part of the picture, but it was primarily a black-white kind of a situation, that blacks don't do as well in surgery as whites do. And I've even had some of the leadership suggest in writing that blacks might be better off if they have their surgery by a black surgeon as opposed to a white surgeon, which, if you're dealing with a situation where you're a doctor and the patient has to trust you, and you have to trust patients to follow your instructions and to believe that you're doing the best you can for them, I can't think of a more poisonous thing that you can tell people. And to me, this was a total slap in the face to every surgeon who has ever practiced ethically. And I believe that 99% of the surgeons in America go every day to work determined to do their best for every patient that they see.
I agree.
And I push back.
Yeah. Good.
And I pushed back took the form of a letter to the president of the ACS, in which I expressed my concerns and said that if the path of the ACS continued, I would see no choice but to leave. That letter received no response. I put an entry into their discussion forum. The ACS has an online discussion forum in which surgeon members can communicate with one another on various topics. And the biggest forum is general surgery. So I put a post in there that basically said, I disagreed with this direction of the college. I felt this was a bad thing, that this did not belong there. And if this continued, I saw no point but to leave. And that particular post generated a comment thread that ran from April 2021 to August of that year, and well over 800, nearly 900 comments, the largest of any comment thread in the history of the ACS. Lots of excellent discussion. I mean, some of it got pretty, passionate, I would say. And I would say that 2/3 of the comments agreed with my position.
Mm-hmm.
And that comment thread actually slowed them, so they had to go to a second comment thread to continue this. Meanwhile, the ACS had put the recommendation to add anti-racism to the values of the ACS. They opened up a department of DEI in the ACS. They hired a new clinical director, a new executive director. They began training their staff in things like implicit bias and microaggressions, which that's a whole conversation in itself called microaggressions. And then to me, the straw that broke the camel's back was when they had a leadership conference in June of 2021, at which they had invited 50 surgical societies. It was a leadership retreat for the leaders of 50 surgical societies in the U.S. And the topic was diversity. And the keynote speaker was Ibram Kendi, who wrote the bestseller, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And he's probably the most vocal, visible advocate of critical race theory in the U.S. today. So anyway, so this thread is all well and good, but it's not really, other than conversation and open discussion, it's not accomplishing a lot. So eventually it kind of died on of its own. And I was waiting to see what my next step was going to be, at which point I received an invitation from the General Secretary of the American College of Surgeons, a doctor named Tyler Hughes, who I think now is being elevated to the president of the ACS. And he invited me to a Zoom call with the leadership, which consisted of one of the Board of Regents. There's a number of members of the Board of Regents. This was one of the senior members of the Board of Regents, this General Secretary, their new diversity director, physician. And I invited a colleague of mine who was on my side, basically, of the whole issue, happened to be a female Black surgeon. And we had a very nice Zoom conversation. This was a long conversation. We all basically aired our concerns, expressed our opinions and so forth. And again, nothing was decided, but I was very hopeful because I thought, this is great. We're having a discussion. Now we're having a conversation, and that was wonderful. Well, and I even sent a thank you email, said thank you to all who participated for hope to engage further, and so forth. A few weeks later, they changed all the rules on the discussion forums. They made it so that you could not post discussions like mine on the clinical forums where I had posted the discussion, which is the largest forum on the ACS website. And they put these discussions back to what I would call a backwater forum that gets very little traffic online. And I protested, and so did a number of other students. And all of our protestations were basically deleted. They were not posted. They were not allowed to be seen. And it wasn't but a few weeks later I found I could no longer access that discussion any discussion forum for that
And you
matter.
received no communication about this.
Nothing. I received zero. So I sent an email thinking that maybe there was a problem with the website, and I sent an
Mhm.
email to Dr. Hughes, Tyler Hughes, and said, "Hey, what's going on? I can't get on the forums anymore." And this is when I was first informed that I had been banned for life,
Wow.
from all access to any of the discussion forums. I could no longer even open them up anymore. And that's if they were going to ban me, that makes perfect sense. What didn't make any sense is they also banned me from any access to the membership directory and even from my own private messages. I couldn't even open my own private messages.
So you were
And
censored.
so I asked
Oh.
why. I said, why? And he said, well, it's because you were being disrespectful. That was the word he used, disrespectful, in my commentaries. And I was persisting in posting non-clinical material, disallowed material on the clinical forums.
The material
my
that they are
return-
advancing, you're commenting on the material that they were advancing, which is non-clinical.
Exactly. Well, what's interesting is this. I mean, they're claiming that these disparities in surgical care, blacks not doing as well as whites, for example, are due to systemic racism. And yet they're saying this is not clinical. I mean, how can that's contradictory.
So where did that information come from that they were putting on their side, basically?
What information is that?
Well, the information about that you were that surgeons are systemically racist and that black people
that was
are not getting as good
in
care.
the task force recommendation. That was in their whole, if you look at the bulletin and the task force recommendations and their reasons for doing these things, it's in black and white on the ACS website that they're dealing with structural racism in the ACS. No examples are given, by the way.
But so no research was done or not trials necessarily, but just research data. Yeah.
Do they have data that?
No, absolutely not. They're making these assertions that, that racism is the cause for disparities in outcomes in surgical care, yet they don't have anything that they can claim as evidence. And there's no example that has ever been put out there in answer to our questions. Where is the example of systemic racism in the ACS? You're saying that we are systemically racist. Give us an example, show us a problem so we can deal with the problem. Don't just say the ACS is racist. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's never been done. They've never come back with that. I asked right up to listen, show me a single example of my disrespectful commentary or my inappropriate postings. And they have never done that. I requested that multiple times to the Board of Regents, to the head of the Judiciary Council. Never once have I been shown an example of what I said that got me banned for life. And I repeat, this is a permanent ban. Okay.
So I just want to.
So I've tried to go through the appeal process.
I want to clarify really quick. So there was no data for the statement that they were saying that African Americans had worse results. So there's no data there, no support there, and then there was no support again or data to prove that you're being disrespectful. They just made these comments with nothing. And these are physicians, and they're making these blanket statements with no data to back it up. I mean, that's scary to me.
The rare occasion when they will reference some study, when you look at these studies that supposedly talk about racism as being a cause of disparities, they're almost always very poorly done. They're clearly ideologically based. They've come to a conclusion, and the study is designed to support the conclusion. So in terms of any kind of randomized clinical trials or actual objective studies, there really are none. Good luck on asking anybody to provide you with any kind of evidentiary, objective type of information that would support the fact that surgery is systemically racist.
And let's just be honest, this is tyrannical. I mean, this is what happens in North Korea. This is what happens in China. They make a blanket statement. I mean, in fact, in North Korea, they don't even have certain words in their vocabulary. I mean, they don't have depression. They don't have love. They don't have these specific terms in their language because they're trying to dissent. Any dissenting voices, they're silencing and canceling. And this is exactly what is happening with you. Exactly.
What's interesting is they kept saying they weren't doing what that was obvious they were doing. They were saying, no, we are not putting in critical race theory. We're putting in diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives.
Mhm.
And of course, my answer or question to that was, well, how does your DEI differ from the DEI of critical race theory? Give me examples. And again, you don't get any answers. What you get is a cancellation. If you persist, you're going to be silenced, basically.
Yeah,
This is what
that's
happened
right.
to me.
Well, Dr. Bosshardt, what I thought was most troubling, which you said just a couple of minutes ago, was that, the dialogue in the beginning was good. You guys were, as physicians, very smart men and women who had completed, medical school, are now fellows, having this discourse of, yeah, I agree, I disagree. And in that, that mix of conversation and some disagreement and debating, good ideas come out. And what's so troubling to me is an organization that is so highly touted would stop civil discourse, would stop debate. That breaks down everything. It breaks down so many systems of bringing out intelligent ideas. So that I just want to bring that to light to our listeners, that this ACS group stopped debate between some of the finest minds in America. And that is extremely troubling. And
That's
just
scary.
like you said, that's a communist country. That's a country that I don't recognize.
No,
I really
no.
don't. No.
Well, it's one thing if this happens in a company like, say a Walmart or a business or something like that. But as you have indicated, to see this in a professional organization, and particularly in medicine, I mean, you talk about debate. I mean, you get a bunch of doctors in a room on any topic, and you're going to get a debate because they're not going to agree on anything from diagnosis to treatment to what surgery is best.
But isn't
we
that the
argue, and
beauty
surgeons,
of
of course,
practicing?
are not known for being wallflowers. They're pretty opinionated.
And
And
isn't that
so
the
these
beauty of being in
discussions
a
can get
group?
pretty passionate, as I said.
Isn't that the
And I
beauty
think
of
that's a
being in a
good
group?
thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Like I've heard physicians say that they like being in a group because they can get
Throw ideas off of each other.
and they can bounce things. Like it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, this type, and I don't know how many people have been canceled like I have, because I don't have the ability to communicate with my fellow surgeons through the ACS, unless I have emails and names. I don't know who out there has been subjected to something like this. As far as I know, to my knowledge, I'm the only one. Now, this
They're
is
trying to divide you guys.
84,000 people, so I can't believe that others have not had a similar run-in. I know the one surgeon who's been what they call moderated. In other words, none of his comments can be posted without being screened by the editor of the community forum. So he's already being censored, but he has not been canceled like I was.
So, Dr. Bosshardt, how do you think that these people work their way up to the top of the ACS? I know you said that you have, you were working in Florida and involved in your local Florida, state board of medicine or what have you. So how do you think some of these people that are in the ACS rose to power without all the membership, knowing you were just minding your own business? Or what is your opinion on that?
There's a couple of things about that. One is, if you look at the makeup of, well, pretty much any, I don't know about other organizations, but any medical organization, you're going to find that, places like the AMA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Board of Internal Medicine, largely they're academic doctors, or doctors that are in universities. They're up in the upper echelon of their field, and typically they're going to be professors in universities and medical schools and things of that sort. The doctors on the ground floor, at the level of patient care, on the front line, so to speak, they're not going to be there because they're too darn busy.
Yeah,
we're too busy with practice. I worked my way up, and this is probably the second part of the answer is, locally, I worked my way up in our Lake Medical Society, our Lake County Medical Society. They're always happy to have people on committees and so forth. And once you kind of put your foot in the door, then they're going to start tapping you for various things. So I went from getting on, I was like oh my gosh, I don't know why you get these brain clouds for a moment. I was a representative of the Lake County Medical Society at their annual meeting. And then I went to being the secretary, and from secretary I became like the treasurer. From the treasurer, I became the vice president. So it's a logical sequence of events. So a lot of the people that are up in the Board of Regents, for example, are going to be academic surgeons, than private practice per se, and the people that have been in the institution for a long time and worked their way up. What I think is interesting is a lot of them are obviously going to be older surgeons because they've been out long enough to be doing this. And if they're like I was a few years ago, they're clueless. They're absolutely clueless of what's going on. And it doesn't take but a couple of very, very well-informed, militant, radical, vocal ideologues. You put that in the mix, and the tail begins to wag the dog, so to speak. I think that's what's happened. A very telling thing. I sent you a letter that I sent to one of the regents of the Board of Regents. He was the one that was on the Zoom call with me, and he made a comment I found really interesting. He didn't say a lot, but at the end he said, well, keep talking about this critical race theory. I've never heard that mentioned in any of our meetings on the task force. He was on the task force for racism. He's been part of this whole process, and he'd never heard of the term. And I'm thinking, how is it possible? And then it occurred to me, because no one's saying the term, no one says it. They talk about DEI, they don't talk about critical race theory. I liken it to the germ theory. In surgery today, there's nothing in surgery that's done that doesn't have something in which the basis is the germ theory, antibiotic usage, the treatment of infections in surgery, that's all based on the germ theory. No one says germ theory anymore. You can go through years of medical practice and never hear the word germ theory mentioned in a single meeting. I think the same things happen with critical race theory. They're not saying it anymore because I think it's become a buzzword that raises too many questions, and people ask questions about it because they want to understand it. So now they switch this kinder, gentler sounding DEI as their I'm not sure if the correct term is a dog whistle or what, but it's like a dog whistle for CRT. When you hear the word DEI, you're talking about critical race theory, whether you believe it or agree with that or not.
I think that's key to know what these buzzwords, like you said, that we know what they are, so that we can decode what's happening, and that's
share truth with it.
Yes, make no mistake, this is a war of narratives, and so the goal is to use palatable words and then change the meaning so that when you hear anti-racism, when you hear diversity, inclusion thing, we're like, of course we want to do that. Of course we want to include everybody. Of course we want to be diverse. Like those are palatable words, right? But then you change the meaning of it, and what that means is scary when you're talking about equal outcomes and equity over equality. So that's what's so concerning. I want to ask you. One of the
things that I hear a lot is the word disparities. We have disparities. We have disparities in, the economy. There are people that are poor, and there are people that are hyper wealthy. We have disparities in surgery where there's different outcomes and so forth. And one of my favorite authors and favorite people, I haven't met him, would love to, is Thomas Sowell, who's now in his 90s and is a absolute giant,
brilliant
in this country in terms of intellect and his writings and so forth. And he had a book called Disparities, Discrimination and Disparities, I think is what it was. And his point, you can summarize the book very easily in saying that not all disparities are due to discrimination. There are so many factors, the breakup of the nuclear family, the welfare state, the breakdown in our cities, breakdown in law and order, drugs. There's a million different possible reasons why you could see disparities in certain demographic groups of people. And to put everything in the basket of racism, not only is it wrong, but it also makes you ineffective in solving the problem because you're not dealing with the proper causes. I mean, that's not the cause.
You know what I find?
What it really does is it gives one group the ability to control the conversation, because the minute you start to question that, you're a racist. I thought it was interesting in that you can't even claim, I can't claim to be not a racist, because to say you're not a racist is, according to that that ideology is a racist statement. I mean, how can you have a conversation? I mean, and if I say anything that offends somebody, that somebody finds uncomfortable, that is a violent act. That is an act of violence against that individual, no less than if I'd hit him over the head with a stick. So, I've committed if I ask somebody, where they're from, what their accent is, any of those things, that is considered to be a microaggression. I mean, it is so completely just incoherent. It's like having a conversation with someone who's speaking a different language or using the same words, but they don't mean the same things anymore.
Yeah.
And they come back at you saying that you don't have a voice in this because you don't have the lived experience. That my lived experience trumps your facts. You can show me all the facts on police violence against blacks in this country, and I can provably show you that particular police selecting out blacks for violence is a falsity, but that doesn't matter because my lived experience is different, and that trumps your facts.
So this is the concern for me, and because that's truth versus delusion. It's a reality versus not a reality, and so I think what is so concerning and just troubling to me at such a guttural level is the fact that physicians, everything, I'm not a physician, but I do know that everything is based on data and outcomes and randomized placebo-blind randomized placebo-controlled double-blind studies, large population group or, subject group. I mean, this is how studies occur and this is how findings develop in medicine. And so for them to not look at data and just say, it's my feelings. I mean, that's obviously the war that we're dealing with transgenderism, with women's, sports trying to go away. I mean, this is not about women's sports. This is not about just these superficial things. This is much deeper than that. And that's a war on truth, basically. And I wanted to ask you, how many members are in this fellowship, in this group? Number one, how many? And then number two, how many in this group of fellows has publicly stood with you?
The second question is easy to answer. The answer is zero. Publicly zero. I've not heard anybody come out and in any kind of a legitimate public forum other than privately to me say that they support me. I had one person send me an email, and what they did was they returned their renewal form to the ACS. When they send you out the renewals for your membership annually, he sent his in and said, "I'll pay you for my renewed membership when you reinstate me, Dr. Bosshardt, into the ACS again."
So it's safe to say there are thousands. There are thousands in this group, and most of them are cowards and have not stood. Because you said 2/3 of the comments were supportive of what you were saying. So 2/3, the majority, agrees with you, but yet they're cowards and they're quiet and they're just, watching everything unfold with you and not standing with you and not standing for truth.
I did. I actually went through the entire comment thread twice for two reasons. One is I broke down how many surgeons participated in that comment thread. There were like about 75 or so surgeons that were actually individual surgeons that commented in all those comments. So many commented more than once. Of course, I commented multiple times answering questions and things like that. So that's, 75, let's just say 75 to 80 out of 84,000. And that was, like I said, the biggest thread in the history of the ACS, which tells you that a lot of surgeons either don't even go on the threads or don't comment or whatever. Of those, I also broke down the ones that were clearly supportive and the ones that were clearly anti, and there were a couple that were a bit ambivalent, so I broke them out as well. There may be a half a dozen that were ambivalent. 2/3 of the remainder were clearly on my side of the issue. And one of the things that, and I can't remember the actual percentages, but for every person who engages in something like this, there's going to be probably several dozen that are maybe listening in the sense that they're reading the comments but not commenting. They're out there peripherally, but they're not voicing an opinion. And one thing that I thought was very interesting is when I still had access to my private messages, I received a lot of messages, including some from Black surgeons who made it clear that they were not in favor of these changes in the ACS. And yet, to a man or to a woman, there were a couple of females as well, they were concerned that if they became publicly, known for that position, that they could jeopardize their career. Now, that to me, that's very bothersome. That a surgeon should have, some of the most extreme, ability to rely on their career and not have to worry about it. That they were worried about losing positions in institutions and universities and medical centers if they voiced an opinion that went against this popular narrative that, racism is everywhere and is the cause of all these problems.
So, Dr. Bosshardt, do you think a lot of these, it sounds like a lot of them didn't respond to you, which is disappointing. And I've heard this over in different contexts outside of medicine, that people are afraid to stand up because their kids may be targeted. They may be targeted and lose their jobs or promotions, or they won't be able to move up. It sounds similar. Like you've had some surgeons reach out to you and say, I support you, privately, but not publicly. So I think there's some fear involved. Do you think a lot of them also are just not aware of what happened? You said some dialogue, but do you think there's just some ignorance, or people just, what is your thought on that?
I think they're very much ignorant. I fell into this. If I had not happened to open up that bulletin with that lecture, I don't remember the last time I actually read the bulletin. You get a lot of things across your desk and you have to throw half of them away because you don't have time to read everything.
Sure.
So it just kind of fell in my lap, so to speak. And then from that on, it became like the snowball rolling down the hill. Mm-hmm. But I think that if you were to question the majority of surgeons in the US, they don't really have a clue about these things. And they certainly don't know what's going on behind closed door. In the ACS, none of these changes that are being put out there as an accomplished fact. They're basically being put out to the membership of the ACS as something that we have done. It's a done deal. We made this task force. We initiated these recommendations. We've opened up a Department of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. We've hired these individuals. Mm-hmm. None of that was brought before the general membership for any kind of discussion or vote. It was all done behind closed doors by the Board of Regents. Obviously they can do that if they want, but that's not the way a professional organization should be running things.
No.
So where are you going from here? You obviously have been completely canceled in these areas. You have, intentionally, you have no way to communicate with your other fellows. So what is the next step for you?
Well, I'm going to continue on my present course for one thing. I intend to be a very annoying little surgeon to the ACS for as long as I can be. I know these things get back to them because I do have people in the ACS that are friends that send me emails and keep me informed about things that are happening that I do not have access to. And there's no way they can not know about these things. I think they're keeping very low in order to avoid a lot of publicity. And I don't think they're going to do anything until it becomes critical that they say something to defend what they've been doing, which is all I'm asking for is a conversation. So my plan is to find as many people like your kind selves to offer myself out to for these sort of interviews to get the word out. I am, writing some articles for different organizations, hoping to get them published in various venues. I've had more success than I really thought I would have, especially with the Wall Street Journal article that I was able to get put out. Beyond that, I don't know. There may come a day when I say, okay, I've done everything I can do, and I may have to walk away. I have not pursued anything legal in terms of litigation. There's several places where I think I would have some kind of a legal position to do that. I've not pursued that, which is not to say that I won't in the future. There was a very clear violation of not one or two, but multiple rules in the bylaws of the ACS to ban me the way they did. They should not have been able to do that. I was never given an opportunity to provide a defense. I was never informed that anything was being considered in terms of a disciplinary matter against me until it was already done, and I found out after the fact. I went to this is really interesting. I went to directly to the head of the Central Judiciary Committee of the ACS, wrote him a certified letter and said, I'm requesting a formal hearing. This has been done to me. I request a hearing to present my side of this issue before the board. And I think that is my right and it is my right according to the bylaws. And the response absolutely blew me away. I mean, my jaw dropped. He sent me a letter back and he said that my lifetime ban, okay, I really emphasize the whole lifetime part of this, but my lifetime ban was never presented to the Judiciary Committee, which is the committee that's charged with dealing with disciplinary matters in the ACS. If a surgeon is misbehaving, then he gets, his case gets sent to the committee. They review the case. They find whether there's reason for some discipline or not. They make a decision. They send it back to the Board of Regents, which then carries out the sentence, if you will, of the Judiciary Committee. That never happened in my case. And so here's what he told me. He said, because this did not come before our committee, it is not a disciplinary matter. My lifetime ban is not a disciplinary matter, i.e. not a punishment. Therefore, I have no right to a hearing. He refused to grant me a hearing. I sent him a second letter that said, here, I spelled out, I put in my letter the specific sections of the bylaws of the ACS that were violated. I got a one-sentence response that basically said, and I'll say this more nicely than I have elsewhere, it said, go jump in lake, we're done.
Wow.
That was it. That's when I reached out to Tucker Carlson and said, I'm ready to come on TV and present my case.
Can you talk about your petition that you are looking for people to sign? Because that's definitely something that you're working on. Yeah.
I did that because I couldn't think of any other way to get their attention other than suing them. To me, if I can get a petition with sufficient number, and what I'm looking for in the petition really is not just numbers, but I want doctors, I want members of the American College of Surgeons to put in there and with their FACS, and a few of them have. They put their names in with the MD FACS after the name, so you know that they're a part of the ACS. I want as many of those as I possibly can get. And then what I do with the petition, I haven't decided. It depends upon really, how many signatures I get, how impressive a number I can put together that will make the ACS sit up and take notice. And
so we need our listeners to go to change.org. And then how do they find your position when they go to change.org?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to minimize this for a moment so I can. The petition title is Reinstatement on American College of Surgeons Communities. I suppose if you put my name in, that you could pull that up because I have no other petitions.
Okay.
So if you went to change.org and you put up my name, I would think that would pull up the
and we will link all these
petition.
in our page
on our content description for our show.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. So you've got
other than that
going.
So in my fondest dreams, I imagine flying up to Chicago and standing outside the headquarters of the ACS with a big placard on my chest saying "Banned for Life," and inviting the Chicago Tribune and any of the news outlets to come over and converse. And I may still do that. I don't know.
Yeah, be careful in Chicago.
Where I go with this.
Yeah.
And I think what I'd just add here is for people to go to the petition. If you have a friend that's a doctor, for our listeners, that that Dr. Bosshardt would like doctors to sign this as well as others. But I think just getting educated on these issues to really understand what is going on, so that when you talk to your friend or your doctor, you can explain to them intelligently what's going on in the ACS, because like doctor said, a lot of them don't know what's going on. So it takes an army of people like moms to educate. So get educated. And you mentioned that you wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal. Was that recently?
That was published September 14 of last year.
Okay. You happen to remember?
And if you put in your browser my last name, Bosshardt, and then WSJ, you'll pull it right up.
Okay, great.
So Bosshardt space WSJ, and that's one of the first things that pulls up on Google if you pull it up.
Okay.
And that kind of summarized things pretty well. This was much better for me because it allows me to kind of flush it out better. One thing too is it's not about me. Yeah, it is in a sense, because I'm a little bit ticked off and angry about this because it really is unfair. But what's really more concerning is that this whole issue of, and we haven't used the word in the conversation so far, but the word woke hasn't come in. I don't think it's come up yet. But this is all part of this whole woke movement in the country that includes critical race theory, includes transgenderism, includes climate catastrophism. Okay, all these things are bundled into this ideology of radical change in our culture. And it's one thing to see it happening in a school where, for example, a school board is introducing, they're having drag queen shows in school libraries, for example, that sort of thing. Those are obvious concerns and are being dealt with by a lot of people. But I don't think people realize that this has infiltrated every level of society, including the most traditional, professional areas. I mean, that this is in medicine is, to me, it just blows my mind.
Yes.
No matter what they say about the reasons, when you come down to it, when you start canceling people and start silencing people, there's obviously something very wrong with your position. If you can't defend your position and be transparent about it, that immediately lends a big question mark to the legitimacy of whatever it is you're espousing. Now, some people may be in favor of Black surgeons treating Black patients. That's great. Let's have a discussion about that.
Yes.
But when you start silencing people because you want to hear what they have to say, and then you start putting false allegations, clearly false allegations. I mean, the fact that they can't produce a single example of something I did to justify the ban, more than anything else, tells me that I'm being totally gaslighted in this respect, that, that I was on the money. And there's an old saying that, the flock gets really, really bad when you're over the target.
That's right.
I think I came too close to the target, and they finally had to put up a couple of missiles to shoot me down. And what they had to ban. I mean, they have the power to put that in and enforce that.
Well, Dr. Bosshardt, we're so thankful to have you on the show today. Thank you for sharing your story. We really appreciate it. We're glad we had the time to talk through all the details. And so again, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us on Moms on a Mission. We'd love to hear from you. Let's get connected. First, follow us on your favorite platform so you can get notified when new episodes released. Then go to our website at momsonamission.net. Good. And fill out your information. That's momsonamission.net. And email us with your comments and questions at momsonamission53@gmail.com. And thanks for listening today.
Moms on a Mission is excited to partner with our friends at MyPillow. According to sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle to get a good night's rest. That's where MyPillow comes in. They make the best pillows, sheets, mattresses, and mattress toppers. Several years ago, I was having trouble falling and staying asleep due to neck and shoulder pain. Luckily, I heard an ad about MyPillow and decided to give it a try. After 3 or 4 days, I really began to feel a difference. I was sleeping better and my neck and shoulders felt so much better. MyPillow really does help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Moms on a Mission wants you to get a great night's rest too. Go to mypillow.com right now and use the promo code MISSION for up to 66% off your purchase. MyPillow products are made in America and have a 60-day money-back guarantee and lifetime warranty. Remember, go to mypillow.com, put in the special code MISSION for your special Moms on a Mission discount. Thank you and God bless.
Hey guys, it's Moms on a Mission here. Are you worried about your financial stability and protecting the money for which you work so hard? The problem is stock market volatility and inflation. You may be wondering what you can do to preserve your family's wealth. We at Moms on a Mission encourage you to reach out to our friend Andrew Sorcini with Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Andrew is the expert in educating you to help you find the right balance of gold and silver for your family portfolio. He made it so easy for me to add precious metals to my financial investments. I simply mailed a check to Beverly Hills Precious Metals and my silver showed up on my doorstep a few days later. It was so easy. Go to bh-pm.com to save a little money and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. That's bh-pm.com. Don't wait. Protect your wealth today by going to bh-pm.com and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. Hi everybody, it's Moms on a Mission here. Recent research from the CDC says that millions of Americans develop parasitic infections and symptoms often go unnoticed or are misdiagnosed.
Parasites are the cause of many health problems, such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, fatigue, and unexplained digestive issues. We all need a common sense strategy to improve our health.
We at Moms on a Mission encourage you to reach out to our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean. Dr. Dean's Full Moon Protocol provides all-natural detoxification and fights inflammation. These supplements are made with 100% organic ingredients and are proven to kill parasites safely and effectively.
To order your Full Moon Protocol, go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. Order Full Moon Protocol and start killing those foreign invaders that have been keeping you sick. That's bravetv.store/mission to receive $20 off your first order.